Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Online Course Creator Show. Today I'm interviewing Jodine McIntyre. So she is coming on the show to talk about her experience of launching with me, and we're going to dive into her story very soon. However, I wanted to pop on here first to share a couple of things with you. Firstly, the doors to moneymakers are open right now. So if it's time to launch your online course the right way, you can jump in. So you can go to loublakely.com/mm to get all of the details. All of the information is on that page. Or you can also go back to episode 100 and hear all the details there as well. Secondly, I also wanted to share some context with you before we dive into this episode. So as you know, I'm launching Moneymakers at the moment, and this week I'm featuring past clients on the podcast. Now, this is the first time that I've actually officially launched Moneymakers to the public. So the program that Jodine has done is actually Action Takers, which is a different program. So Action Takers, to be clear, is a group coaching program. So it's higher level support, and it's actually for a person at a different level. And you're going to hear all about Jodine's story in the episode. But Action Takers is for people who have already got experience in launching, and the purpose of the program is to really fill the gaps and to take them to the next level. So you're going to hear the lowdown of Jodine's situation in this episode, but essentially Jodine had already done some other launching programs before working with me. So she had a good knowledge of launching, and she had also done 3 to 4 launches as well. So Action Takers was the perfect fit for her. But as you'll hear in the episode though, there were things that she learned in Action Takers that really did up-level her launches, and the other programs, for whatever reason, weren't able to teach her that. And so she talks about things like her sales page and her webinar, and also the mindset of following through, which made a big difference. So I wanted to share with you that I do teach these exact same things in Moneymakers. So when she's talking about those things, just know that you will learn my system in Moneymakers. And those were the things that really changed the game for her. So you will learn what you need to know from the start about launching in Moneymakers so that you can launch with success. So if you're just getting started with launching, or you've done some launching but you feel like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall and it hasn't worked, or maybe your online course is sitting on your website yet but it hasn't sold, then Moneymakers is definitely the right option for you. However, if you are looking for higher touch coaching similar to Action Takers, then reach out to me and I can point you in the right direction. However, 9 times out of 10, Moneymakers is still the starting point. And Moneymakers is different from Action Takers in the fact that Moneymakers is a course with pre-recorded training and a full curriculum. So you can watch the lessons and take the actions at your own time and pace. However, I am also going to be running it live for this cohort. So if you join now, for the next 12 weeks, we're actually going to be doing live calls. So you'll get the weekly calls and the community, and then ongoing, you get lifetime access to all of the trainings, to the programs, and any future upgrades I make. So Moneymakers teaches you the system from start to finish that you need to launch successfully. And so just to be really, really clear, because I do want to be really clear on this and make sure that I'm fully transparent, and also you have full context listening to this interview. The key distinctions between Moneymakers and Action Takers is that curriculum. So Action Takers, there is no curriculum. It is purely coaching. Okay, and that's why it's for someone who already has distinct knowledge and we're looking at their specific issues. Whereas Moneymakers has that really structured curriculum that you can do at your own pace and anyone can implement it, right? The other difference is the level of support. So Action Takers being a high touch coaching program, the contact that you have with me is high because that's what a coaching program is. However, Moneymakers is their online course. You still get access to ask me questions, and of course you can jump on the calls and that kind of thing, but you're not going to get me deep diving into your business that I can only offer in a coaching situation. So Action Takers is also not for people just starting out with launching. It's for people with a bit of experience. So 9 times out of 10, Moneymakers is going to be the right option for you. If you are wondering if you need a higher touch option, definitely don't hold back in reaching out to me and I can steer you in the right direction. But just diving into this episode, wanted to provide that context as well. And I wanted to get super clear on that before we dive into the episode. So I hope you enjoy hearing about Jodine's story with launching. And with that, let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the online course Creator Show. Today I have a very special guest, Jodine McIntyre from Social Smarty. Now, Jodine has been a client of mine in the past. She has learnt and implemented my launch system. So I've invited her on the show today to share her story of launching to help inspire you with your journey as well. Welcome, Jodine. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, it is fun. So could you take a moment and share with the listeners who you are and what you do?
So, as Lou said, I'm Jodine from Social Smarty. I am a social media trainer. So I help business owners, marketers, professionals, leaders understand how to use social media. So that can be anything from creating Instagram Reels to how to create a LinkedIn account or maybe even running paid ads. So it's anything to do with social media. And I am social media obsessed. Like I'm literally addicted and I absolutely love what I get to do every day.
I love that. And how long have you actually been working in social media? Because I love that you say that you're still obsessed. I know you've been in business for a while, right?
Yeah, so I launched Social Smarty just over 6 years ago. So prior to that, I was working in digital marketing. I was actually working for our local economic development agency here in Hawke's Bay, New Zealand. And there was a real gap in social media training. So there was plenty of agencies that would take over for you. So you could hand over your social media and they would manage it for you. But there wasn't anyone locally who was specializing in actually upskilling those business owners. So for me, it was a really easy transition from the role I was working in to starting my own business. So, but prior to that, it had been years and years that I'd been working in digital marketing, but also event management. So way back when I started my career, it was in event management. But I really found myself leaning more into the marketing functions. I had a Bachelor of Business Studies and I had studied marketing at university. So even though I was working in event management, I would be really leaning into the actual marketing of the events. Or when I was managing venues, I just wanted to get stuck into the digital marketing side of things. So it just sort of progressed. But social media has changed so much in those 6 years since I started my business. And then I think about the first ever Facebook page I created, which I think was about 2009, which just seems wild now. Like everything has just changed so much.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think that you're still obsessed with it because it does change so much. And actually, one of the things you're really good at is keeping your followers up to date with the changes. You send out a pretty comprehensive newsletter every Sunday. Detailing all the changes, which must be a lot of work for you.
That's one of my favorite things about my business. So every weekend I get to just deep dive into all the changes that have happened for the past week. And I really try and distill it down to just the sort of things that my clients, my audience would need to know. So they don't need to know about everything, but if it impacts businesses, then that's the sort of stuff that I like to report on. I also try and really focus on plain English. I don't speak a lot in acronyms or marketing speak. I just try and think about how can I really clearly help someone understand what this change is and what it means for their business.
Yeah, awesome. I think you do such amazing work. So on that note, what's the course or the product that you now sell via launching?
So I have a membership. It's called the Social Smarty Society. And the idea behind the membership is that I do work with clients one-on-one, but obviously not everyone can work with me. So whether it is because of their budget or maybe, I get booked up quite quickly. So it just might be that they can't work with me one-on-one. So this is the next best thing. So it's access to all of my frameworks, my knowledge, but it's distilled into a membership. So there is an online portal where you can log in and there's lots of different trainings in there. There's a good old Facebook group for support so that you can ask questions in there. I have monthly live sessions. So it is a really great way to access me without that higher price tag.
Yeah, cool. And it is a great product, having seen inside it myself. So before we worked together, can you tell us a little bit about where you were at in terms of this membership, in terms of selling it, launching it, what it looked like, how you felt about it, all of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I was just really playing small, and I'm still a little bit in that space, but I'm starting to move out of it with your support. So I actually did a bit of online training around launching. I had done Amy Porterfield's Digital Course Academy, and basically I felt like I had the knowledge of how to launch a product. I was really confident in the offering. I knew it was a really good offer. I had easily sold to my warm audience. You know, those people had jumped on board, but it was kind of that next stage that I was really struggling with. So I had launched maybe 4 times before working with you, maybe 3 times. But each launch, I really played it safe. It was really scary. What I did find launching was, intimidating, and selling and putting yourself out there, and the energy it takes to just keep being consistent and keep showing up during that period, I did find pretty tricky. But yeah, I must admit, I had a couple of launches under my belt.
And how did you feel like when you went into a launch? What kind of happened?
I would go in all guns blazing, feeling like I had this, like in the bag. Day 1, great. Day 2, starting to lose a bit of energy. By day 3, day 4, if I've got card open for 7 days, by day 3 and day 4, I'm like, ready to just give up, just cancelling social media posts, or not even, sending emails, and just that total sort of, fizzer. Just getting to that point where I just really struggled to, keep that momentum going.
So you kind of had that, that mid-launch bail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of it, I think, is confidence. So if you don't really try at something, then, you're automatically going to fail. Whereas if you try your hardest and you fail, like it's way scarier than actually saying, oh, well, I failed because I kind of gave up. It was inevitable. Whereas if I put everything into it, then failed, it was like, oh gosh, well, I really tried this thing. So I thought, halfway through, I'd just almost sort of give up.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's like a form of self-sabotage in a way. Like if you don't try, then you've kind of got that as an excuse to make you feel better. Whereas if you give it your all and then you fail, then it's a lot harder pill to swallow, I think. But that's really interesting that you were, bailing out. And I think that's a really common thing as well. You're definitely not alone with that. When you decided that you need launch help and you're looking at working with me, did you have any hesitations before going ahead?
My only hesitation was in myself. So I knew that working with you, I knew was a no-brainer. Like I knew that you knew how to coach someone through this, how to guide me through it. But I was still concerned that even with your support, that I might self-sabotage, that I might still give up. And then you've invested not only the time and effort into the launch, but you've also invested in, someone to help you with it, and the coaching and the support that you provided. And then you've almost got 2 failures on your hands. So that was my only concern, was actually in my own confidence.
And did that pan out?
No, definitely didn't pan out. I must admit, having someone like you who you're answering to was such a game changer. If it's me on my own, it's very easy to just not send that next email, or just not post that thing to social media, or not show up on my stories. And it's only me who's accountable. I'm only accountable to myself. Whereas if I had to explain to you why I didn't do the email, why I didn't do the story, that was a whole other ball game. So I think, it definitely didn't pan out that way. I had literally my most successful launch ever. I didn't lose momentum, and yeah, I don't know. I felt like it was almost like having a cheerleader on the side, that when I had those moments of doubt, it was like, oh, actually, like, you're there on Voxer giving me support, telling me, like, you literally, I think it was it might have been the day of cart closing, and I'd planned to send one email. And I remember coming into Voxer and being like, oh, I've got one email to send. I was thinking about sending a second one, and you were just like, send two emails. You're going to send two emails. It was like, it was non-negotiable. And I remember sending it and thinking afterwards and looking at the stats and going, oh my gosh, like, thank goodness Lou pushed me to send that extra email, because I totally got sales from that email.
Yeah, it's so interesting that sometimes we just do need that push from someone else, because it's easy to kind of bow out, even if we really want it.
Yeah.
And also it's easy to feel like I'm sending too much. That's a really common thought that comes up in launching, but it's absolutely not true.
Yeah. And just having someone else to validate those thoughts, like, I could have thought, oh, I'm sending too many emails, so I won't send it. But then to have someone else to say, actually, no, you've only sent this many emails, and, you're in launch, you need to do this. What's the point? All those sorts of things is like, oh, okay, yeah. And you can really easily change your mindset. Whereas when you're on your own and you've got your own stories going around in your head, you can almost sort of like validate your own feelings without, any evidence or anyone else to kind of challenge you.
Yeah, totally. Like, you will choose the easy decision and then validate it in your own head.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. So what shifted for you now, like, you had this tendency to do a launch and then kind of lose momentum as it went through. So what was the big shift? Because you already had learnt a launching system in the past. Like, you were one person who had already, you'd done DCA with Amy Porterfield, and you'd also done another launching course. So your knowledge of launching was already there. So what was the biggest kind of shift that happened so that you could go into this launch and actually see it through right to the end? Was it like something that you learned? Was it, my strategy or process as opposed to what you'd already learned, or was it more the support?
It was kind of two things. So number one, I think having your eyes on my work was really important. So for example, like, the two game changers that you really helped me with were my sales page and my webinar. So I already had a sales page and a webinar, obviously, from previous launches. But and that's because I knew that's how you launched, like, I knew from doing these online courses, and I had the sort of framework. But what I didn't have was the expert eyes across the sales page and the webinar. So I remember, like, no offense, but I did get very frustrated because I came into working with you thinking I knew it all, and, like, you were just going to support me. But when you challenged me and helped me improve my sales page and my webinar, it was hard work. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I had to really push and get it done, and, like, really drill down into who my audience is, what they wanted, my sales page, my language, the wording I was using, even the layout, which I thought was great. When you pointed out a couple of things, it was like, okay, right, back to the drawing board. We've got to fix this. But then when I was in the actual launch and saw the increased conversion rate. I actually had sales on the webinar instead of previously. I don't actually think I'd ever had a sale on the webinar. And that's because my webinars were not the right structure. The strategy was not there. And it was you that pointed that out to me. So that was a massive change for me. But then I think also, just as I said, like, the support, absolutely gold, like having someone to just keep encouraging you, pushing you, being accountable to someone. Like, it's one thing for me not to send that extra email, but it's another thing for me to actually have to message you and say, I didn't send the email. You'd ask me why. I'd have to try and come up with a story on why I didn't send the email. So yeah, I think those two things were the most important, getting your eyes on my stuff and helping me improve it, but then also helping me keep up that momentum.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually, I do remember now, and I actually see this quite often, is that going into a webinar, like you were saying, you hadn't had any sales before live on a webinar, and something that's really common that you were doing previously was just purely teaching and then not really taking them through a path to actually purchase. So it was just pure teaching, and then you'd kind of throw your offer out there at the end and hope that people would buy. So how did you find that shift?
As I said, it was hard. Like, I struggled with it because, and I don't know if this is like a female business owner thing or if it's just who I am, but I really struggle with that whole salesy concept. So my strategy beforehand was just to wow people with so much value that they're like, oh, wow, that was amazing. Like, of course I'll buy your thing. But the problem is that I was teaching them something that then they were going away with a to-do list. And so they already had this list of stuff that they wanted to implement that they'd just learned. So then when I'm offering them something on top of that, it's kind of like, well, I've already got all of this to do. Why would I then sign up to your other offer and then get more stuff to do? So I feel like not only was I not being strategic with my webinar, I was kind of like doing the opposite of what I wanted to achieve. So then when you helped me restructure my webinar, I remember feeling really uncomfortable and thinking, this is too salesy. And I had this thought that people on the webinar were going to be upset with me for helping them understand. Like, this is the thing, is I thought they were going to be upset that I was trying to sell to them. But what I was actually doing was helping them understand their problem and then offering them a solution. And the funny thing is that people were really excited about that, and I had sales and people were like, great, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need. So yeah, it was interesting. I do remember feeling very uncomfortable though with changing that strategy, and almost to the point where I thought, oh, I'm going to prove you wrong, Lou. Like, this is not going to work. Like, you say this is going to work, this is not going to work. And then when it worked, I was like, okay, she was right.
I think that's really common as well. And like, we feel like we want to lay on the value, but actually quite often that value isn't actually helping anyone. In a way, it's helping us kind of feel better about ourselves.
Yeah. But like really I said, I was just giving them a massive to-do list before they could even think about buying my offer.
I have a wee rule that if they leave with a to-do list or anything to complete before they buy, then you've lost the sale, like you've overtaught 100%. So how did it feel to actually see sales coming in live on your webinar?
Oh, it was amazing. It was like, oh, okay, this stuff actually works when you get it right. So, it felt really good. And I think it's interesting because now I have a framework that I can launch over and over again. So not only did working with you sort of help me in that launch, but then it was like, oh, cool. Okay, so I've done this once and now, I can refine it even more, but I can use that webinar again. I can use that sales page again. So yeah, just kind of set me up for future launches as well.
Yeah, and the thing I love about that strategy is it's actually not new. It's been around for a long time, and it's based on like consumer psychology. So it's going to keep working no matter what happens in the online world, which is a really good thing to know, I think.
Yeah.
So how did your launch pan out, that first launch that you did while you were working with me?
It was awesome. I pretty much doubled my membership. It was my most successful launch ever. Doubled my monthly recurring revenue. It was great. It was really exciting.
And you had an insane conversion rate on that launch. I remember it being, when we did the debrief, it was 38%, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of it, I mean, obviously it had been a while since I'd launched. And so because I just didn't have the confidence and I kept, self-sabotaging and I kept saying, I'll do it later and I'll put it on. I can't do it then because it's school holidays. And, I had every reason under the sun not to launch. So, I think there were people that were kind of waiting to get in, which really helped. It was definitely on point for the audience that I had reached.
Yeah, so just for context for those of you listening, a normal conversion rate is between 1% to 5%. And yeah, sure, you can get from like 5 to 10. That's also quite common for a really good offer, but 38% is crazy. And it definitely helps to have a warm audience sitting there. Like, it would be hard to repeat that if you were launching to a cold audience. However,
Totally.
like, that is just proof that there was so many people waiting for you to sell to them.
Yeah.
Waiting to be invited.
And I just feel so silly now that I hadn't launched for so long. It was like, oh, all these people literally waiting, like knocking on the door. And I'm like, no, thanks. Not right now.
So how has learning the launching system actually changed your business, and what impact has it had on your business overall? And as someone that's launched quite a few times, even before you came to, you know, learn my system and get my support, like, I'm talking about all of it.
Yeah, so the biggest shift for me was I saw my membership as a kind of nice to have on the side. So my business focused on one-to-one, and then the membership was just kind of an extra add-on. And then when I launched and had so much success, I started to think, well, you know, I'd sort of got to the point where I was only working, I still only work during school hours. You know, I've only got so many hours in the day. If I'm trading that time for money in the one-to-one space, then of course I'm going to be limited with my revenue. And then with my membership, that was kind of like that little bit of cream on the top. But when I had a really good launch, I started to think, like, why does it have to be that way? And I've really leaned into the idea of flipping the two. So then my main revenue source becomes the membership, which is not reliant on my time. You know, I can have 100 members, 1,000 members, 10,000 members, but then the one-to-one becomes the cream on the top. So it's kind of opened my eyes to having more freedom in my business. And like, imagine that. Like, imagine if you can use your digital course, or for me it's my membership, as that main revenue driver, and then have your one-to-one as that premium when you want to do it. You know, if you only want to do a couple of hours a week, then, you know, that's absolutely fine. So that was kind of a revelation for me. Like, I really thought I'd almost hit the ceiling of my revenue potential because I had no more hours in the day to work with clients. So yeah, I don't know, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think just realizing the potential is such a game changer, because quite often we'll create like a course or something just as a wee extra, but then like the power of it is so huge if we like actually learn how to launch and actually repeat the process and commit to launching. Because yes, launching, sure, it can be work and it can be like this period where you're on a lot more, but then you really reap the rewards over time, and then it can give you that kind of payback on your time when you get to the point where it starts scaling. And like you said, it doesn't matter whether you have 100 people in there or 1,000 people, it's still the same amount of work to run.
Yeah. So that's been pretty exciting for me. Like, just the potential, I think, is, it suddenly seems real. And like, I live in New Zealand. I live in rural New Zealand. Not, I would say, a small town, but not even a town. You know, I live in the sticks, and to think like, you know, I could be earning some really good money with an online business just seems bonkers. Like, you think it's reserved for, like, you know, Americans with beautiful white teeth and massive audiences, but really, like, it's kind of like anyone can do it.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this the other day. It doesn't matter if you're an extrovert, an introvert, whether you like love working with people or hate working with people, like, you can make the online business model work for you, which is amazing, I think.
It sure is.
Yeah, so can you share some of the results that you've seen since doing, you know, following through the launch strategy from start to finish, as opposed to kind of, you know, bailing out halfway through?
So I guess in terms of the results, so yes, I doubled my monthly recurring revenue. I doubled the number of members in there. It was my most successful launch that I'd ever had. My conversion rate increased, and my confidence grew. But then also I then had that framework to repeat that launch. So I guess the results are both tangible but also intangible. Like, that confidence piece, I think, you know, is really important. And that's the thing that I find that some other programs really lack. Like, DCA was amazing and I learned so much, but there's absolutely no one holding your hand through that. And if you get left behind, like it goes at pace. And if you get left behind, you just feel like, well, what's the point? I've been left behind. So I think that having your support, building my confidence, like I said, letting me see the potential of this thing that I've created that could, replace a huge chunk of my income. That sort of stuff, the intangible stuff, I think is just as important.
Yeah, cool. So for context for those who are listening, Jodine did Action Takers, and then she's also done a VIP day with me. We will set the strategy because the Jodine's next journey is to build out her offer suite with low-ticket digital products, which is super exciting. However, for those of you listening, we're talking about Moneymakers specifically in this episode, which is my signature program where I teach the launching strategy that Jodine has very much been through in Action Takers. So, Jodine, my question to you is, what would you say to someone who is considering launching an online course or a membership or another digital product and, maybe they've already got one and it's not selling, or they're just thinking they want to create one? What would you say to someone who is considering signing up to Moneymakers and actually learning the launching system that I teach?
I would say, oh my God, go for it. Like if I can do it sitting in my little rural, farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, and if I can do it, then you absolutely can do it. I feel like the online space is in a weird phase at the moment. I feel like there is so much potential out there, but then there's also some people who are not doing it very well. I could name half a dozen business owners that I know that have created digital products, online courses, all sorts of things. They know their stuff inside and out, and I have no doubt that their products are amazing, but they just sit there. They might create a landing page and they just expect people to come along and buy this thing. And when it doesn't happen, they get really disheartened. So I think if you don't know how to launch, you're just absolutely leaving money on the table. So I think, I just would say just get stuck in, do it. What you learn now can just set you up for years and years to come. Like if you know how to launch and then you get better and better at it, it's just so much easier than just popping something up on your website and expecting it to sell. Because I promise you, I've been there, I've done that. It does not sell. People don't magically just find your offers and come along and buy them. Even if they are amazing, you've got to get out there and get launching and understand the process of getting people to actually sign up for your stuff.
Yeah, I love that. And once you know the process, you can just repeat it and actually get better at it and find your unique way of doing it as well. But until you kind of learn the basics, it's really hard to make launching your own, I think. But on a side note, that's actually why I called Moneymakers, why I gave it that name, because I feel like you can create a course or a membership and put it out there. Like that's actually the easy part. But creating something that actually makes money, it's a completely different ball game. So it's a little bit of background why I've called Moneymakers, that name.
Cool.
Because I do think that it's like you say, you can just, half a dozen people that have got a product sitting there. And I see that quite often as well. Probably about half the people that work with me actually already have a product that's not really seeing the light of day. And I don't like that. I want everyone to make money from their programs.
I just find it so funny how, and when you start out, you think that the creation is the hard part. When you're in the trenches and you're fleshing out your modules and you're trying to figure out what you want to cover and what you don't, and then you've got the tech element, what sort of platform should you use? How do you record your videos? Where do you host them? Audio, all that sort of thing. It just feels like that's the hard part. And then you finally get this thing and you're so proud of it and it's there and it's live and it's ready to go. But that's actually when the hard work starts. And so having that product finished is that's amazing. But actually the selling of it, that's the bit that you really need to focus on now. So it's just interesting that people think the work is done. I've got this thing, it's ready, people can buy it, done. But it's not. It's called now let's launch this thing.
That's so true. I think people really do get fixated on what's the name, what are the modules, how many lessons are there, how many downloads, how many hours of teaching is there? But they don't actually sell a course.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good point. It's really common as well. So actually learning how to sell it is the key. And I always say it's like 80% marketing and 20% what your offer is. And once your offer's done, you don't actually need to spend too much time on that side of things. And it is, at the start when you are launching a course or a membership and you're creating it for the first time, it is a lot of work, but you're kind of front loading the work that in terms of the product happens at the start, but then afterwards you completely remove that delivery from your business, which is amazing.
Yeah. And it's disheartening when people don't know how to launch, because you can see like how deflating it can be. Like, you've put all this effort in and you're so proud and you know that your audience needs it and you know that it solves a problem, but if no one buys it, it's kind of like, well, what was all that work for?
Yeah, no one ever even sees inside the program, and often the content is amazing and has the potential to help so many people, but it's just not getting seen if you don't know how to sell it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next for you in terms of what are your future plans with launching? Any upcoming plans in business that you're super excited about?
Yes. So you already know this, Lou, but I'm going to be working with you one-on-one to help me with that offer suite. So it is about freeing up time, moving more of my business online, more scalable. So the membership, and reducing my one-to-one client hours just so that I can have a bit more freedom in my business. I am obsessed with social media, as I said, and I find myself just getting so bogged down with working in my business that I want to play. I want to have fun again. I want that freedom to create different types of content and experiment with things and be a bit more of a content creator. So I'm really excited about having a bit more freedom of time, and just helping more people. Like, social media is really hard at the moment. We're going through a massive transition with the way that content is shared on social media platforms. And if I can help, more business owners understand how to use it to, like, the frustration out there with using social media for some business owners, like, if I can just support them with that and give them some clarity, some confidence, help them show up consistently on social media, then I just can't wait to get stuck in.
Oh, that's so true. I feel like social media is in real flux at the moment, especially like personally, I've noticed that engagement on Instagram has just completely dropped in the last few weeks. Are you noticing that too?
Yeah, lots and lots of my clients are seeing the same thing. I mean, there is a lot that's happening behind the scenes. So there's some big changes that are happening with the platforms, which always makes things a little bit sort of uncertain and shifts things. But I think the whole landscape of social, changing from an actual social network to an interest-based entertainment sort of offering, I think is just massive. And business owners need to understand that. They need to understand how to, create content that actually works with the new way that we're seeing social media head.
I'm going to have to get you back on for another episode to talk about just social media.
Yeah, just try and shut me up about social media.
Love that. We'll definitely have to make it happen. So where can people find you if they want to connect? And, right at the start, I mentioned that amazing newsletter that you send out every Sunday. Where do people go to connect with you and potentially sign up for that?
So you will find me everywhere at socialsmarty.co. So all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, I'm at socialsmarty.co. My website is socialsmarty.co, and you can sign up. There's a nice, easy sign up button there. And every Sunday, like Lou said, I'm sending out updates, what you need to know in the world of social media marketing. I also record a podcast version because I understand not everyone wants to sit and read a newsletter every weekend. So if you have a look on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the usual places for the Social Smarty Show, you'll find my podcast as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jodine, for coming along and sharing your story about working with me and about my launching system. And yeah, it's just really great to hear your story. And I hope that those listening have connected with it in some way. And if you are ready to sign up, you can join Moneymakers right now. So thanks again, Jodine. It's so good to have you on. And yes, we'll definitely have to arrange another guest interview where you come on and talk all about social media. I'm really excited for that.
Oh, I'd love that. Love to do it.
Cool. Okay, bye for now. Thanks, course creators and go-getters. You're incredible, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit subscribe in your podcast app so you don't miss an episode. If you'd like to find out more about what I offer, head across to loublakely.com. See you next time.